All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Chat thing was set wrong. How's everybody doing? Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving last week and is ready for holidays coming up in a couple of weeks. Markets are not ready. Not ready for anything. Doesn't seem like it. So Bitcoin is in an interesting position. We had a couple alert levels here we set over the week. Inverted head and shoulders pattern on BTC did break out technically. Technically, we're still in that breakout territory. We have a measured move up here into the 18,100 level, and we'll see if that ends up happening if we get up there. Our volume aggregation tool and some of the distribution up here, you can see we were good for a minute trying to get out, only for a minute though, and then the seller stepped back in, and it's been really choppy ever since. We popped up, had a immediate distribution candle, and we ended up kind of flat for the rest of the week. Another distribution here after another pop-up candle there, distribution. So that's a little bit of support. That's kind of like not quite a doji, but you got almost a third with the top wick, the body, and the bottom wick of the candle, and then so on and so forth, and rinse and repeat and all that good stuff. So unfortunately, not really moving up tremendously. The good news is that we're not going down, but we're also not making a lot of forward progress. We're discussing a lot about how the rest of the, with inflation and economic stuff, macro stuff, how it just choppy. We've been talking about chop for basically this whole last half of the year, and while it has generally been a downtrend, we spent a good amount of time in chop, more time in chop than we have in the downtrend. And so I think that continues. We're going to continue this action until I think, we reach our new normal, like we discussed a couple weeks ago, and we end up, where we end up. Whoever knows where that's going to be. What up, Mexican Charlie Lee? Yeah, Litecoin is is the last one on my top 20 list here, so we'll get through those here in a little bit. So chop on the table, chop is the forecast, and chop is our present, and that's kind of where we sit. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to make trades. Easier to hodl and I guess go about your day, but there's not a lot of money to be made trading. Probably losing more in fees or anything than you are actually gaining in terms of gains, percentage gains. I mean, look at these ranges on the daily; it's just abysmal. I mean, if you look at the RSI, what up, Dream Car? If you look at the RSI, it's just really flat. I mean, we're not rallying quickly, we're not dropping quickly, we're not going from 50 to 0 or 50 to 70. We're just basically flat. This drop here was our last drop, and other than that, it's just sideways action. Absolutely abysmal. So really nothing going on. Kind of some of the more boring times in crypto that I think we probably ever had. Even more boring than before the 6K drop, at least in my opinion. This is just churning around for a long time, and I think a lot of it is due to macro stuff. So more price specific stuff. I don't have a bullish alert for BTC right now. We have the 16618, which was coming out of this formation. We had a drop down below 16.3, which we talked about the head and shoulders potentially dropping here. We try to undercut and rally here, and that kind of preceded the breakout. And now we're, as I keep moving that number around, now we're just chopping around a little bit higher, but unable to reach this measured move so far, and then unable to do much. How's my gardens? It's wintertime, Dawn, so it's not too bad. How's your vacation going? I saw some pictures of you there. I hadn't partaken in the roasting of you quite yet, but I only saw it last night. Some of the guys are pretty funny. So, yeah, I was gonna have the garden farmer do the whole garden thing. I was just gonna water plants or something. That dude's got the green thumb, obviously. All right, so let's move on from BTC. There's not a lot to talk about with anything, to be honest with you. Most of it chop. Litecoin is still interesting, so that we'll talk about that a little bit. That's on my newsletter too, so it is kind of in the forefront of my mind lately. Litecoin and a Trust Wallet. Trust Wallet's been pretty good, but Bitcoin with the pop-up, which is real choppy. I mean, even if you got it at the alert level, you're only up 2%. Like, really? Come on. You just can't get anything going right now. I mean, there'll be better days ahead once everyone thinks crypto is dead, like truly dead. And they're starting to think that. So we're probably starting that weird bottoming process of Everyone forgetting about it. Bringing the follow-through day system into it, this would be 5% if we were to go into a bullish uptrend. This is what we would have to reach, this green line up here. And a day like this, we haven't had a day like this breadth since these candles over here. It's just been nothing. So I'm not sure we're going into a bullish move. I think the Federal Reserve would probably have to spark that. And they talked the other day, which kind of killed the rally, or what was a rally. But we always lately have rallied into the Fed, and the Fed ended up being a selling event in 90% of instances lately. So it kind of turned into that again, at least with crypto. We'll do stock later, and we'll see. We'll talk about that. I saw an interesting post that S&P was at a resistance line, and also they were talking about VIX being really, really low, implying low volatility, implying that volatility should be incoming. Whether that means a drop or a rebound is interesting, because Dow Jones is pretty close to highs, and Nasdaq's pretty close to lows, so it's interesting. Yeah, I don't think the Fed's going to pivot on a dime. I think it's going to be an erosion, and I actually think the Fed's doing a pretty darn decent job, to be quite frank with you. The Fed's not a popular institution, especially among crypto people for the most part. But, we've seen a lot more calamitous events by the Fed. I think they got saved a little bit by the inflation, because it's like, oh, this is what... Because it was interesting, because before the Fed would try to do stuff they would try to do stuff, but inflation wasn't a problem. And their whole job is to manage inflation. But inflation has always been under control for the past... since 2008. So, them just doing nothing was fine, and then now we get big inflation. Now they get to do something, but I don't know, it's like they haven't overreacted. Doesn't feel that way, at least. From Ireland. Oh, how you doing, bro? Yeah, we have my wife has family in Ireland. They live there most of the year round. They got a house here in Phoenix too. So, yeah, been to Ireland a few times. Pretty great place. At least when I've been there during the non-winter years. Of course, I was there in February once, and I hated myself for leaving Arizona and going to Ireland in February. Wasn't a good move. Won't do that again. All right, let's move on to, is my sound bad? Hold on, let me see if I can listen to myself. Is my sound bad? I don't know. That looks okay. Okay. Must be some Irish slang I'm not familiar with. Okay, let's move on to Ethereum. Change my timestamp here. Sound is good. Cool, thank you. I think my delay is low again. YouTube's latency is not friendly to me. All right, move on to Ethereum. So Ethereum moved up out of a horizontal. We had the 1227.78. Yeah, I figured that out a little bit late. It's all good, but yeah. So we had this nice horizontal on Ethereum, and we're still above it. We're still holding. This is your general trend right now for ETH and this whole thing. Again, ETH doesn't have a really classical pattern on it right now, so it's just going through motions. Here it came down, made the second point to the trend line. Maybe we'll do something similar here if we can continue with this uptrend. The market seems half-ass stable is the term I'm going to use, because obviously there's nothing really stable about most of this. None of this is classical. What I mean by classical is there are certain classical patterns that have repeated throughout market history, going all the way back into the 1600s, with some of the Japanese candlestick patterns. And none of this is classical. So this is just all random meandering of markets, which doesn't really lead to anything good. You can get pop-ups or drop downs out of stuff like this, and there's smaller patterns that you see. Like here's a descending triangle. This is a classical pattern. This should have dropped to the downside, hence this marker here, but it didn't. We popped back up. So now we're back up just in choppy territory, but not too bad on Ethereum. If it holds above the 1227, I would deem that as relatively bullish. The volume aggregation tool here, green is good, orange is not good. And so you got greens overtaken here. Beautiful green candle here, beautiful green candle here. This is a trend line, so that's not a candle. And you get a little bit of distribution, but not too much. And you can see here the buyer's drifting away, and the buyer's drifting away, and the seller's drifting away with them. So we're not really we're not really dead yet. It's going to take another influx of capital, either selling pressure or buying pressure to really get this thing moving. But ETH's in a pretty good spot. If you bought it, you know, you don't want to risk capital, so you don't want to hold it if it goes lower. You want to try to ditch it just to maintain capital. Your main job in these environments is to stay in business. So you have to have cash, or just be willing to hold these assets as cryptocurrencies for extended period of time. But most of this audience is trading related, so you're usually sticking to cash. Or if you're fine sticking to crypto or sticking to BTC, that's fine. But you have to maintain your base value. Otherwise, you don't have a trading account. When ETH 500, I don't know, man. I don't know. You know, if we get down here, we're gonna have some strong support here at the 887 level at this low. So I don't know if we get down towards here and we start dumping, then yeah, and, you know, we could go down. If you're looking for a time guide, I love to use trend lines for those things because they're one of the only things that give you time scale in the markets. Everything else is suspect at a minimum. But you know, these trend lines, these can actually, you know, lead you to some time scales, and then once these bigger ones, notice I'm on the daily time frame, I'm not drawing them on my 2-hour chart on the left. Once these start to get broken, then you can, you know, if you hold support, break a trend line, that's a good indication that we're not going lower. So I mean, if it does go, I mean, it could take a while until it gets back down here. 9 months from now, if we hold this lower trend line with this deeper extension in orange. So it's hard to say, but we're going to find some good support down there at 8 whatever, just under 900. All right, next up is Hex, and Hex was not looking very good, and then it popped up, and now it's just chopping around again. Lower highs, now a pretty big lower low here. That was a big wick from the FTX debacle, and then we came back down, tested it, and held it, and we have a nice green day. So we'll see what happens. Hex is, yeah, Hex will probably move up with the market, but here's its trend line on the top here. Plenty of room for this to go sideways and piss everybody off that's a Hexakin. So November next year, another year of garbage here. Like I said earlier, it feels like everyone's starting to give up on crypto, which means that we're beginning the waiting cycle for the next cycle. It's kind of what that means, if that makes sense. BNB here, 300, chopping up. Again, nothing classical here. It could be a declining wedge, but it's nothing that's kind of nothing amazing. This could be a bullish pattern. If it's a wedge, it should be a bullish pattern. We have 2 touches at the low. This one's not too bad. BNB lately has been a source of strength. It really hasn't gone down a tremendous amount. It's been pretty stable. It was at highs with BTC, so that's always a good thing, as it's holding its value versus that, you know, stalwart crypto, or whatever word I want to use there. So actually not too bad right here. If it does try to curl up, I'm not going to throw an alert, but the 294.50 wouldn't be too bad if you wanted to be aggressive on BNB. XRP here chopping around, going through motions. Not a whole lot happening, but it's holding a little bit higher. We have this bear flag, this wide bear flag drawn. We drew it just before we got to this peak, and it looks like it respected it. We could try to adjust it, but I think I'm just going to keep it as a channel. Next up is Dogecoin. And Dogecoin was on this little uptrend. It broke our trend line, and now it's just chopping. So it's not chopping in a bad way either. Going through a trend line in lower volume like this isn't such a bad thing, but it's got to get through resistance, and that's the 10.806. Not much to do until then. Oddly enough, we got Cardano popping up a little bit here today. One of the few things positive and actually leading us today. Above the 322, this one with a little bit of divergence on the RSI, and curling up here a little bit. This has not led up or down, so I'm not sure if this is going to make any good trades or not. I'm not going to be doing anything with it. In these environments, you have to learn to let most trades go, as a matter of fact. You only want to take very, very high-quality entries in these environments. I personally don't deem this as a high-quality entry. It's just a horizontal. But anyway, it was there. My job is to show these things, and so I did my job. 322 with Cardano. Next up is Solana. Solana's been chopping around. I have the 1512 there in case that wants to get going, but so far it's happy just doing what it's doing. You could make a case here for an inverted head and shoulders, and maybe that would be some kind of a neckline. Yeah, it probably would. Yeah, it'd have to be that. That would have to be your neckline if you want, or this, actually no, shoulder. head, shoulder. Yeah, this would be your neckline, the 1512. This horizontal also could be a trend change indicator. I'll get rid of these now. So Solana, an interesting point. The question is, with FTX thing going on, is someone willing to jump in and buy a crap ton of Solana down at these levels? If it's going to come back, who knows? I'm not sure the status of it development-wise, to be honest with you. If someone's more informed than me, please speak up, let me know. But it's just going through motions right now. Getting to this trend line doesn't mean it's a buy. Getting up to here means it has more momentum, and if it gets through 1512, that would be through resistance. And once you get through resistance, that's at least a better sign than just breaking a trend line. This isn't the most amazing trend line in the world either. Your trend line should try to encompass this point, but obviously those highs are far away from us right now. Next up is Matic. And Matic, choppy and a little bit higher, still in its range. It has been stuck in here for a very long period of time, well off of its low. Matic is, in my opinion, probably one of the better quality cryptos. At least that's what the market's telling me. When you're up this much off of your low like this, and you can hold a very tight channel, even an attempted breakout on excellent volume that gets pulled back in. This is still looking good overall, but still not actionable as of yet, in my opinion. All right, next up is DOT. And this is almost as garbage as Cardano. Popped up a little bit like Cardano as well. Larger trend still surrounding it here, pushing it down. But undercutting this low, again, similar to Cardano. Cardano and DOT very almost like brothers or sisters in the fact that they're dedicated networks that both don't do anything. All right, next up is Tron. Speaking of something that doesn't do anything, I talked yesterday or the day before in my Power Hour show about maybe this rising wedge could break to the upside if the market decides to rally. It's obviously not doing that, but this was the alert in that case. I did put it a little bit higher, so we have some headroom, and we didn't even need it. It's just chopping, going through the bottom trend line right now. So this could be actually maybe a shorting opportunity, but Tron has been such a weird little asset that I'll just avoid it altogether. Even though it's in the top 20, I cover it. It's really not worth doing much with. I mean, just the fees you pay on Tron. Look at how long this thing just chopped up here before it finally fell over. That was FTX. That had nothing to do with Tron. So I'm not sure what's going to happen here. But this is technically a rising wedge. It's a very bearish pattern, and it really should fail. Win 1300 BTC? Probably never. PJ, probably never. Hopefully never. All right, next up is Shiba Swap. Yeah, sure, PJ. I enjoy the lives. It's fun. And on Saturdays, it's always good to gain your guys' perspectives and stuff like that. So I'm gonna try staying live on Saturday for a bit, unless members object. So Shiba Swap here. Shiba Swap is choppy sideways garbage. Usually moves with Dogecoin, and not a lot of that's going on right now. All right, next up is AVAX. AVAX up and above the trend line, moving a little bit. You are getting some volume here. Volume aggregation tool is showing a little bit of accumulation. So it is in a bit of an uptrend. I'm not sure what it could lead to, but no alerts on this one at the moment. Uniswap. Uniswap has been rallying this whole week. Oddly enough, kind of out of nowhere. You're going to get some coins that rally in these market environments. Feel free to participate, but it's hard to know which one to jump on. I mean, it doesn't look like Cardano. It doesn't look like it doesn't look that much like these other coins, but had a similar formation here. So which one do you buy? If you chose Uniswap, I guess you would have made a little bit of percentage, but I'm not sure how far we're going to go. We failed the 672, and it looks like pretty good resistance at this point in time. Atom. Here it is in the daily, lower, chopping through the trend line here. Technically, this is a double bottom base, although it's a huge double bottom base, and our alert should be here. Let's change it to 15709. Although I really don't think anything's going to come of it, but we should change it. Because that 13 was nothing. Okay, 15709 and a big double bottom base for Cosmos. All right, next up is Chainlink, which has been kind of in this uptrend off of really bouncing off of those lows. we kind of talked about this channel and a rebound off of that. And if somebody did buy that, that would have been, I mean, I would probably advocate profit taken up at this level. You could go for one or two more if you wanted to play this whole range. I mean, that's a really good trade right there, especially in this market environment. We didn't hawk on this trade, but this was a pretty clear bottom. If you look at the channel, came down to it, kind of stuttered down into it, low volume. We discussed all of this, and yeah. But I would definitely advocate maybe taking some profits up here. But at the same, because this trend line is going to be gone soon, if not already. See, it's starting to go through. So this could be a small. You could maybe put a 4 to 5% stop if someone did buy Chainlink down here, just to give it a little bit of room for that further extension up. So 28%. Yeah, see, that's a good trade, especially in this environment. Up as much as 54.55 if we get towards that $9 level. So this is your range for Chainlink, and it's doing a good job of going through it. One of the few coins that's actually behaving somewhat normally, at least ever since this low. Is kind of, just kind of fell off since the high attempt. So you can see this is channel trading. You buy at the lows, you sell at the highs. So, but you can see how choppy it gets in the middle. Like if you bought here, look at how choppy it got. You had to wait a long time for it to get to the highs. And then here it never quite got to the lows. Here it never quite got to the highs. Never quite got. So that's how channel trading works. It's just kind of weird. But when you go all the way from the bottom to up in the middle, that's in itself a pretty good, good trade. And then Litecoin, everyone's favorite these days, apparently. This has been on a really nice run lately. Something to do with FTX. I think it's a flight to safety, because Litecoin is not controlled by a single individual. It is an ambiguous network of computers and people, and no one really controls it. Although I'm sure if people got together, they could 51% attack Litecoin. That's not in the seeable future. But this has been in a nice uptrend. Some beautiful volume candles up here, leading to some tight action. Unfortunately, we've had a 79.81 alert for a while, this trend line here, and it hasn't been able to overtake it yet. A couple of more days left on the trend line. We'll see if it's going to go. I probably actually could adjust this right now. And it's kind of hard to put a parallel trend line on it. It really wants to be a broadening wedge such as this. And if I remember right from my textbook, a broadening wedge. Let's look at the broadening wedge. Bolkowski Encyclopedia of Chart Patterns, book that I have on my website if anyone's interested, or you just Google it. Who cares? Broadening wedge. So descending broadening wedge. There it is, page 87. If you guys are following along with your book, which you're not. Price action follows two downsloping trend lines broaden out. Failure rate 37%. So it's not a very reliable chart pattern. Yeah. So this is technically a continuation pattern for Litecoin, even as a broadening wedge. And so 79.81 right now is pretty good. If we keep going sideways, I may lower this a little bit along this top trend line in terms of an alert level. Volume is really nice. Look at even the daily volume aggregation tool. We were pretty heavy selling right here based on the FTX thing. And then we rebounded really nicely. And look at this. Buying pressure seems very elevated at this stage. Although really only about 3 or 4 candles making up most of this. As our volume wears out, we'll see where we end up. But I do have alert levels for Litecoin. I'm not mad at it. I'm on the fence about selling it. I mean, I really would like at least an attempt to go higher. But if it just falters, if you get a high volume candle through the trend line, it may just be an exit signal. It's just a weak environment. Just not the place to be doing crazy stuff. It's time to be taking profits. All right, that was it for BTC pairs. I probably should wrap up top 20. Don't do this every day anymore. So let's go ahead and wrap up the 20. The top 20 coins, a lot of randomness around. We appear to have exhausted our uptrend for the moment. There's some coins that look a little better than others, but for the most part, everything's chopping in very much random fashion. Nothing classical, implying that no large-scale accumulation. It's not we're not seeing broad accumulation. We're not seeing a broad market rally. You're seeing pointed assets making a couple of patterns, and that's pretty much it. This is one of the worst trading. We've been in one of the worst trading environments, and this is this is yet again another one of them. Like even Litecoin, it's really hard to have a lot of confidence to buy. This is a cup and handle. We covered it, but it takes a lot of confidence after you've gone through all of this to buy this, like almost at the same level too. So it takes a lot of confidence, and I mean your reward right now is 16%. But you've been stopped out of trades multiple times at this point, and most people don't want to do anything, and I don't blame them. At some point we'll come back. I just don't know when that's going to be. All right, USD pairs. I only had one that I thought looked interesting, and it was Phantom, FTM, and as I wrote FTM. Let me change that. So Phantom here actually has been on a little rally, kind of got away from me here, and just kind of kept going up. Now we have a larger type of a consolidation. Volume aggregation looks really good. RSI is coming in pretty nicely in a bull flag on the daily. So hopefully, maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to attempt something. But following through has not been this market's strong suit. All right. Next up is Trust Wallet. Then we'll look at a bunch of stock stuff actually, because we have time and we can do it. Really not a lot to talk with cryptos though. Trust Wallet, where are you at? Trust Wallet, all the way down here. All right, so Trust Wallet here. And this one's kind of been on the radar for a minute. It's been in a great uptrend, especially versus BTC all year long. Really just a interesting story. Not exactly sure why it's going up, but it's been going up, and the FTX thing really blasted this thing through. So we have an alert here at 13,978. I'm actually going to raise this right now. I wanted to do it during the show. There appears to be a lot more points of resistance up here, even going back to this wick, which was our most recent top. So this is 14,911, and that is going to be our new alert level for this. If it can get above that, we'll definitely be attempting a high. Whether we can get above it and stay above it is a whole different issue. I do think that since FTX kind of made this thing rally, I'm not sure what is a fundamental event that would make this thing rally further. Most of your volume stepped in here on the initial uptrend. So going back up here, like what is going to be the catalyst? I don't know. I'm not sure anybody knows, but there's no major distribution even after all that buying pressure. There's not a lot of distribution, so they're still holding on to these coins. They could try to accumulate more. It's really hard to know. And again, I keep talking about the environment because it's very important that there's not a lot of risk assets running at the moment. And so this being kind of a unicorn, at least in the past couple of months, very difficult to. It's going to stall at some point. And we'll see if we get past this 14,911. It broke the trend line here, but not really in a horrible fashion. It has a long way to go before it breaks another one. So it's really just up to this base and how it wants to play out. All right, let's take a look at stocks. Kind of see what's going on there. Let's take a look at the DXY first. We'll look at the currency market, see what that's doing, and then we'll look at some stocks. And the dollar really has been in a good downtrend since it broke the trend line. So that is a very good sign. We've been talking a lot more about macro here than we ever have on the channel because it's important, obviously. And so as we kind of drift lower here on the dollar, one of the guys in the chat, 50 Satoshi, popped up, said that we were rhyming with, I'll see if I can find it. He said something like we were rhyming with something from, oh, here it is. Oh, wow. Very easy to find because no one's in chat anymore. He said that we were rhyming with, he said we're coming up to this 382 and that we were coming to a supportive trend line. I think would be the 200-day moving average. I don't think I see it up here. So this looks to be a potential area of support. This was a few days ago, and it looks like you broken that line, but I don't know. I'm not. So 50 Satoshi is a big believer that the everything bubble has popped, and that we are just going to go into, at some point, a 1929 type crash. I am not a subscriber to that theory, to be honest with you. I just don't. I understand where people like 50 are coming from, but I don't subscribe to it. We did obviously went into a bear market. 50s had every right to rub stuff in our face for the past year plus now at this stage. But I don't know. I mean, we've obviously gone down a bunch in the markets. I just don't know how much more down we're gonna get. I think we have a lot of chop. I don't know if we have a lot of down though. How much do you think a recession would have on the DXY? Well, I don't think that much. So this whole thing. So I yesterday tell a little story. Yesterday on the radio, one of the morning hosts in Phoenix, Arizona, really conservative guy, um, was off, and he brought in a former congressman for his show, which I thought was pretty darn cool. A guy named Matt Salmon, a Republican, and he had some people on, and he was talking about inflation, and they were talking about all kinds of stuff, and he talked about what causes inflation. And obviously, money printing causes inflation. He was very direct about it, and he's correct. Money printing causes inflation. So a recession, the money printing caused this. And the reason I bring that up is because it was interesting. But number two is due to the fact that the money printing causes the dollar to rise because the dollar is the world's reserve currency. And so as everyone around the world's, as the US dollar gets inflated, everyone's currency around the world becomes worth less. And so they buy dollars to try to keep up with the dollar. And so it becomes a cycle of inflating the dollar, and that's kind of what happened here. It's a flight. I kept calling it a flight to safety, and it is just that, a flight to safety, because if you need to hedge yourself against the dollar, you just buy the dollar. And so this is an uptrend of the dollar. So the dollar's being sold off at this stage of the game, in my estimation, because people are thinking inflation is topped out. But a recession itself should have very little effect, from my understanding, on the dollar. I've never actually studied that, to be quite honest with you. Recession's effect on the DXY. I don't think it's that important for the dollar. The dollar is more of a global thing. It's not a local thing, if that makes sense. US is a local economy, and they don't buy and sell the dollar based on the US economy necessarily. They buy it based on world economies, world currencies. Like if you look at the Great British Pound versus the US dollar, like, this is 2020, so this was selling of the pound to buy the dollar because they're scared. I mean, this has nothing to do with recessions. It's economy versus economy is really what it is. And so with the dollar going down like this, it's actually good for the world economy, which could stave off a global recession. I'm not going to go too deep into that because, number one, I've never been like classically educated in that stuff. But also, number two, you can get really deep in the weeds, and I will get very confused because it does get confusing, to say the least. But we could stabilize out, get support that 50's talking about at some point, and the sell-off can continue, and the dollar can start rising. If we pass a lot more legislation that prints a lot more dollars, you will probably see more people come in and buy more dollars. Because you kind of have to. We are the world's reserve currency, and it's being mismanaged at the moment. It just is. I don't know how else to say it. And but I mean, it's a welcome sell-off. Is it just a pause? When will it resume? Those are the questions to be asked. Yep, we print money, and the others pay the price of inflation. Yeah, they really do. What ends up happening? If Ray Dalio does a lot of studying of world economies, and he's a global macro investor, invests globally in all kinds of assets, stocks, bonds, some commodities, I think, too. But he just invests globally. He's been talking about this for a very long time, about how like empires collapse, and once the world loses confidence in the dollar, it will just absolutely collapse, because everyone will move to a different currency, and they'll be buying that currency. So that currency goes up in value, whatever that currency is. Some people think it's going to be the Chinese yuan. I think it's the yuan, or the Chinese currency. Other people think it's going to be the euro. Whatever it ends up being, and whatever it ends up happening, then that will be, everyone will pay attention to that currency. But for our lifetimes, it's been the dollar. And we don't get moves like this very often. I mean, by any stretch of the imagination, the dollar's been in a huge range, going all the way back to 2015. of about 10 cents here, and then it was in another range here, and another range. Now maybe we'll be in another higher normal. Who knows? But anyway, so for the short term, we've kind of topped out in terms of the dollar, and that's given relief to some of these other currencies, which are kind of back now up to parity with the dollar. The pound is now 22% more expensive than the dollar, which is a lot more normal. You see this trend line here that it's been stuck in for a long time, and see all the volume here on these currency exchanges. A lot of people, buying the pound here because it's historically low, and even now you're not seeing, going back many years, like many years, you're not seeing anything near this level for the Great British Pound. But at the same time, generally the pound has been being devalued over longer periods of time. Like this range and taking this leg lower, we can have a lower high and still never quite get back up there. But anyway, let's move on to some stock stuff. Stocks in Tesla. All right, so let's take a look at the stock market. Okay, so here's the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ, let's look at the three leading indexes. Here's the NASDAQ, here's the S&P, and here's the Dow Jones. So interestingly enough, the Dow Jones is technically a defensive index. It's a value index, and it's not a growth index. You're not looking for major growth out of the Dow Jones stock. So, but look at the rally this is having here. I haven't looked into the Dow components to see why it's rallying like this. It could be because of Apple. Because if you look at Apple, it's not really falling apart. Where you have some other X that are, like Tesla's down a tremendous amount. Amazon is down and is staying down. So this is weighing on the NASDAQ, and I don't think Amazon is on the Dow Jones. So it's not weighing on the Dow Jones in the same way that other stocks would be. And ExxonMobil is holding up all-time highs here, on about all-time highs, pretty close to all-time highs if it's not in all-time highs. So this is helping the Dow Jones as well. So you have some of these things help the Dow Jones go high, but your risk assets, the NASDAQ, is still sitting lower. And what I heard the other day, yesterday actually, and it's looking kind of true on the NASDAQ, there's a trend line that's been holding the top of this market down. And so here it is for the S&P. If I take log off, maybe it's going to be a little bit, yeah. So with log off, here's this trend line for the S&P. And the guy was talking about buying puts for the S&P. And I'm looking at this going, I can't fault you for that. I mean, this thing has rejected this trend line 3 times now. I can't fault you for thinking about buying a put on this, to be quite frank with you. Like, where would you buy it? How would you do it? You'd hope it goes down within a month. I would assume this trend took 2 months. 2 months to get lower. So if you try to buy a put, you want to try to buy it down here for 2 months lower, where you'd make some money. Make some money down here if it gets down to the 35.24. Not bad with a relatively tight stop loss. So I don't think that would be such a bad thing. And then, but if we come down here and chop around and hold these lows, I think this would just be for a trade. Like, you would trade it for that. You wouldn't hold it for 6 or 9 months, unless if you bought that time. Options are a little confusing, but you can buy enough time for a month or enough time for a year or whatever, 6 months if you wanted to. If you're still making money, if this goes here during this time frame, you can try that and try to hold it in case we drop lower. But you kind of have to run the numbers on that to see if that's going to work for you. But as far as it dropping here in the near term, yeah, definitely possible. I don't think the Dow Jones is going to blast off into new highs. I mean, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So what's the impetus for this to rally another 7% and then continue in perpetuity? The NASDAQ could do anything. It's in the middle of both of these. It's at its trend line as well. But we were here chopping around. We didn't come to this bottom trend line this last time around, so that shows some support or lack of selling pressure. And then now we're popping up a little bit. So I feel like they're getting ready to get in, but they just haven't done it yet. Again, leading to chop. We don't have a firm belief and direction when it comes to the institutions, and that's when you see these environments. But we are all over the place in the stock market, just like we are with crypto. It is not cut and dry. You're going to see, the Dow Jones rallying one day while the Nasdaq falls the other day. Hey, what's up, Aram? I mean, you're gonna, and we're seeing this. We're seeing all of these so random. It's just everything is so random in the bigger picture. The Nasdaq is stuck lower, the S&P is kind of in the middle, and the Dow Jones is even higher. That is completely inverse of what should be happening in a growth environment. The complete inverse. The Nasdaq should be rocking into new highs 3 weeks before the S&P gets there, and the Dow Jones sometimes gets there with everyone, sometimes late. Then you have the Russell 2000, which ideally is running with the Nasdaq in a good economy, and obviously it's living lower, similar to the Nasdaq. So those growth stocks are really being suppressed. Transportation index doing pretty good. There's its trend line. It's a bit of an older trend line, but it's still there, with a small bull flag. So you're hoping that this rallies through, and as the transports go, generally the markets go. The transports kind of went first with a failure to go higher here, and then now we're down here. So if we start to break the trend line in the transports, you may start to see these trend lines break in the Nasdaq and the S&P. The question is, what do you do with that? Do you invest all of your money immediately, highly leveraged? Well, no, you don't want to do that, because like I've been saying for a long time now, I still think we chop around for a long period of time. I think your time is better spent either educating yourself on these charts, doing a lot of homework, or just go out and make a shitload of money and save it until the markets get better. I think those are better endeavors, really, than trying to make a lot of crazy trades right now. Let's take a look at some of the leading stocks. We discussed Apple already. Apple, let's take a look at Apple. We haven't spent a lot of time on stocks in a while, and I don't know. Let's kind of see. That's not really a good trend line for anything. Let's try to see if I can encapsulate all of this action. Get another kind of a broadening wedge. Really big one, though. I mean, this is a daily going all the way back. Not on, let's go to log scale. So there you go. So now you can see the drops in comparison using logarithmic scale. So this is kind of an average drop. So there's the last drop. This is from 2018. I mean, so we're in ranges with prior distributive levels of Apple, and we're kind of in the lower third of it right now. We've come down a little bit lower, but the inability for this to go lower. And another thing to mention here, not we've talked about this, but not for a long time, is the volume. Look at the volume of Apple. Notice how it's really heavy over here and very little over here. There's no real selling pressure happening in Apple. This isn't like a calamitous event, like this is a calamitous event. Look at all this volume in 2020. Like everyone's just running for the hills over here. And then you end up with weekly S&P. No, I haven't looked at weekly. I don't do a lot of weekly charts. Even in stocks, I don't. IBD does, but I usually don't. So there's a big volume. There's a big volume. Big volume here, not on the low. Then we kind of rallied back through. So what's the VA tool say here? Yeah, look at the VA tool. Buying and selling were both really elevated. So some shares traded hands here, and smart money bought it low. I think that's what this is telling you. Because as your selling increases, here your buying is also increasing, and it never actually goes away. If you just look at this, look at all the green on the volume aggregation. It was just constant buying accumulation pressure in Apple. Here we get a little bit more choppy, and as you can see, the stock isn't really rallying very hard. And now but see, even as we're lower in this, look at most of this is green. You got a little bit of red right here, a little bit of red right here, but for the most part, most of this is green. So this is Warren Buffett buying. This is all these people buying Apple at down discounts, 20, 30%, whatever it is, 30% for Apple. It doesn't usually get too far past 30%. 36% at the extremes of 2020. 38%. So if you're at 30 plus percent on Apple and you're buying Apple 32%, I mean, these are the extreme lows from the most recent highs. 13, you get down to 45%. That was before Apple was the money printing behemoth that it is today. And then you got 2008, which was well before, and 56%. And then here's that choppy low action right there in the middle of that garbage. So, I mean, Apple itself is not doing bad. I mean, they're not selling Apple here. No one's really scared of this market. Yeah, what's up, bud? Hold on a second, guys. All right, sorry, I had to help my kid out. He hurt his hand. Trying to open a bottle of naked juice, which is just horrible stuff, by the way. Naked juice. It's like 35 to 52 grams of sugar. And in a fruit, what's supposed to stop the sugar from fucking you up is fiber, which obviously get none of in a juice. So, anyway, that's my rant on naked juice. But I have to relent. My wife keeps buying it. Anyway, I forgot everything I was talking about. So, yeah, Apple up here, not doing too bad though. No heavy distribution up here. If you want to accumulate Apple, they do pay a small dividend. It's not much. It's 0.23. It's like $1 a year. So you're getting less than a 1% yield. But if you need less than 1% yield, there you go. We can take a look at S&P weekly. Did you have anything specific you wanted to look at? Or, yeah, we did some charting over here. So I guess looking at the weekly, we can look at the lows to see if we have excess accumulation maybe. Uh, the volume aggregation tool definitely shows distribution, but the buyers are kind of stepping back in here a little bit since this point right here. The buyers have been stepping back in on the weekly. On the RSIs also have a slight uptrend to it. Actually, divergence on the weekly, but so this is a lower low here. This is a higher low here. That is a divergence and a bullish signal. So, yeah, we mentioned that down here too. You know, these may be at lows for good buying. I did buy some stuff down there, mainly TQs and Tesla, but yeah, TQs and Tesla. Yeah, so I mean, not too bad. I mean, we're playing with this trend line. We'll see if we're going to get above it, though. It's hard to tell. The buyers and sellers are fairly even here now. The sellers came in here a little bit, went away. Buyers are coming up a little bit. Let's see who stays around. All right, what else we got? So that, I mean, Apple really does lead this market. It just makes so much damn money. Microsoft is another one. Microsoft broke its horizontal in a nice way. Look at the volume on this day. Very nice. This is not a pattern of any kind, though. This is just a horizontal trend line break. And pretty good, pretty stable. It looks like we tried to retest the trend line on Friday, came back up, closed really well. So Microsoft, that is a bullish sign from Microsoft, although it still has a bit to go for its trend line. Tesla came down underneath its lows with Elon Musk being an idiot. And just, you know, spending too much fucking time on Twitter. Wish he'd just go to Tesla and make some shit. But Tesla, I mean, pretty good signs overall, I think, in terms of not going lower. We did undercut here for a good period of time, but we bounced back really nice. Look at all these nice, so 2 pocket pivots here. You had 1 pocket pivot here and 2 other pocket pivots on the way down, but as long as we don't get too many more of those, I think we'll be somewhat stable down here. I don't know what's going to be the catalyst for this to go back up, but you've got, what are we to all-time highs here? 113%. So not too bad. And, you know, depending on when Tesla's going to get their act together and you know, start making more factories and stuff. I know they're trying to pull out the Cybertruck. Some updates on Cybertruck. I haven't really Googled it. Delayed to 2023. Well, yeah, it's like 27 days away. Duh. Up to 4 motors. That'd be an awesome truck. Beat the Silverado with an EPS 500 miles. I don't know if any of this is real. V4 supercharging. Subsection added new specifications. Tesla's own stainless steel grade subsection. Well, that'd be cool. Chip shortage. That seems like a cop out. Yeah, I remember this. So I actually remember this. Someone said, "Why don't you build your own chip fab?" Actually, he said that someone asked him that, and someone would say, "Why don't you build your own chip?" Well, that would take us even moving like lightning 12 to 18 months. But this was uh 2 years ago almost. So he would have had his own damn chip fab by now if he would have freaking done it. Just build the damn chip fab and shut up. They should just build their own chip fab. I don't know why. They got the money. They could do it. They can build their own chip factory. Then they'd be good to go. They already designed their own chips. Maybe they would get a little bit more integrated that way. I don't know, but I think they should have built their own chip factory. They build a lot of other stuff vertical. Why won't you have your own chips? Makes sense to me. So I don't know if there's an. Seems like a living article. Yeah, it's an update. I don't want to update article. Late 2020. Reuters claims late 2023 production. So yeah, I don't know. Tesla aims to production at the end of 2023, 2 years after the initial target. Yeah, I really wish. I mean, a lot of Tesla fans out there. I'm a huge Tesla fan too. Um, I don't know why they can't do this shit in parallel. He blames the fact that they don't have a lot of engineers. I call bullshit. I don't know what's going on, but maybe they can't get more cells. Maybe it's a lithium constraint. I don't know why he wouldn't say that, but these stocks have these massive trajectories and then growth stalls out again. I mean, Tesla's already gone through one or two growth phases. You can see it in the stock chart. Here's your early IPO phase, really stable, and then really started taking off in May of 2013. And then you lead to another thing here where they're waiting for the Model 3 to be produced for another 5 years or whatever the hell the case may be. And maybe we're going to go through the same thing here again. Maybe we're going to get these long extended periods of garbage in between these brilliant rallies. I don't know. I know Elon tries to bite off a lot. He pulled off the Model 3, pulled off the Model Y, kind of in succession within the same year or so, which led to this rally, but I'm not sure why they're not doing things in parallel. I mean, I would think you'd want to start the next factory. I mean, I don't know how much you're putting in Optimus if they're getting distracted by that, but I don't know. If they would just build shit, I don't know what's going on there. I'm not in the factory. I'm not an engineer over there. I just feel like Elon's time would be better used at Tesla and SpaceX. Okay, Amazon. See, this one's a little perplexing. Amazon has been heading lower. Lower, lower, lower. We had a beautiful setup here. Beautiful ascending triangle. Huge shakeout with 2020, obviously. And then, boom, accelerated right back out with all of the online life that everyone lived for like 6 months. And then just giving it all up right now. I don't fully understand it, to be quite honest with you. Let's look at revenues. Revenues are 127 versus last time we were over here. Revenues were, I'll go here. We're 87. So it's grown 50% for crying out loud. I'm not sure what's up with it. Someone's saying maybe slower growth. I'm not 100% sure what they're seeing here, but I mean, Amazon, could be a really good buy at some stage. Obviously, without Jeff Bezos at the helm anymore, it is likely to do something different. I mean, anytime a founder leaves a company, it's usually not good for the company. One of the main exceptions would be Apple, because Steve Jobs just really changed everything, and he really did an amazing job from a designer founder perspective. And then Tim Cook has done probably the best job number two could have ever done in the history of business. I don't know every number two that there's ever been, but to take Apple, into the number one company and hold it there for like a decade is just phenomenal operations out of Tim Cook. So give credit where credit's due, but Amazon doesn't have a Tim Cook. I don't know what's going on here, but sometime it'll be a good buy again, but not really. Let's take a look at Exxon. Holding up in highs. Oil prices are coming down a lot. In Phoenix, we're finally under $4 a gallon again. Some refineries in California opened back up, and so it's bringing our gas prices down. So Exxon and ConocoPhillips over here coming down off of highs, but still holding up pretty good. The chips have kind of been on a little bit of a run lately. We talked about long-term turnaround play with AMD, and that's still on the table. We're still in the bull flag. Volume is still declining, but we have some nice pops here. Aggregation tool, I really wish that it was a little bit different. I'm not extraordinarily encouraged buy this up here. This was also a bull flag that failed. This also could fail. We did try to rally through on Thursday. Couldn't quite do it. It's a really good Wednesday here. Wednesday was really nice and above average day. This wasn't a big issue. This also not a big issue. If we start breaking that trend line right there, it could become an issue. It really could. We shall see. I mean, chips are very interesting. They have a lot of pricing power right now. But they have a lot of pricing power. I'm not sure why they're not behaving really well. So again, very difficult environment to make any moves in. And that's about it, guys. That's about all I got. Let's take a look at BYD, China EV company. Probably the only thing that can hold a candle to Tesla right now is BYD. And it's at some pretty good low levels right now, actually, as well. But investing anything in China is suspect at the moment. Riot Blockchain with a good 8% day. Wow, that's interesting. So this had an undercut and rally, I think last week, maybe it was the week before. And this can kind of precede runs in Bitcoin. I like the fact it's not going down, but we're not really running it either in it. And the Bitcoin CME futures. And someone pointed out this did not, I think it was Mike. Mike pointed this did not have the inverted head and shoulders, and he's 100% correct. Or no, it's right here. This did not have the inverted head and shoulders. This is technically just a bear flag that we popped up out of. So it could turn into something else, maybe a channel or something, but right now it's nothing. All right, guys, let's get out of here. Let's wrap it up. We'll go back to BTC and see what we got, but all right, so wrapping up the day today, it's just a lot of chop and small trades, if any, are on the table. Is really not a lot. I'm hoping, this is my hope. I'm hoping it's gonna be a boring December, maybe a boring part of January, and we get back to some action in the early part of the year. I don't know if that means mid-January, January 1st, February 1st. I don't know what that means, but you know, we're really low and slow right now. There's really not a lot of movement. The key here is to protect capital, have something left for the bull run, so you can, you know, if you lost money in this past year or two, hopefully a good majority, if not all, that money back. But you got to have capital to do that. And these are just not really great trading environments. When they pop up, you know, we'll be all over them. But right now, they're just not there. The ball's too small, the volume's too small, the moves are too small, and it does appear like we're back to waiting for that drop again. We got one drop here with FTX, and I don't know what's going to cause the second one. It may be nothing, but it's not looking great. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Appreciate it. Appreciate the chat. Have a good day. Stay safe out there. I'll see you guys next time.